Yeah, that was a big thing. Like now that I've learned so much about nutrition, like not just what's going to be good for me to play this game, but like life in general, I always want to help my teammates however I can.
Hello and welcome to the Eat More Carbs podcast. I'm Jenna Fisher and I'm here with my co-host Reilly Beatty. Today we have a special guest on to help answer some questions.
Hey, my name is Sally. I currently play professional hockey in Austria with the Lakers, and last year I played professional hockey with the Montreal Force in the PHF.
We're super excited to have Sally on today. Sally is one of our sports nutrition coaching athletes, and we've been working together for a couple of months. She has been such a rock star in the program. She takes her nutrition so seriously, so we're so excited to have her on and help answer your questions today so you get a athlete perspective and a little athlete insight from a professional athlete. Sally, I know that you and I know each other really well, but for everybody who's listening, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I don't even know how long it's been at this point, a few months, maybe like half a year. But yeah, I started working with Reilly a little bit before my professional season was getting started when I was playing in the PHF, which was the former professional hockey league in North America. And I just thought that if I was taking my performance to the next level, then I might as well go all in and invest all the way. So I found a good registered dietitian that I trusted, and it's been great ever since.
So you're originally from Vermont and you played at Liberty University. Tell us a little bit about the difference from like college hockey to now being a professional hockey player.
I'd say the biggest difference is commitment level, but also commitment availability. So, since I played club hockey, a lot of people really focus on their academics and like other activities. It's not so strict scheduling wise as like NCAA. So sometimes you can't always commit 100% to the sport, which is fine. But then once you hit pro, obviously everyone's very dedicated and committed. Even though a lot of players had to work another job still, everyone took it extremely seriously and was ready to perform every day and taking those extra steps that you can't necessarily do all the time in college. So I'd say that was the biggest difference. It's just more of a priority, I'd say.
And then now you're in Austria and you've been there, which I guess at the time of this recording, a little over a month and a half, right? Since August. So talk us through and like walk us through a little bit about that experience, that change in culture.
Yeah, so in Montreal, since I was coming straight from college, it was harder for me to break into the pro level straight out of college like that. So I didn't get to play too much last season. So this season, I was looking to play somewhere where I could get a little bit more ice time, get some more development since I'm a little late in my career age wise. So with the help of my agent, we looked around at some European leagues, and this is the EWHL, the European Women's Hockey League, and they have teams in Austria, Italy. We just played an Italy team, Poland. They have teams all over Europe, and so it's really cool. You get to travel to other places and play a lot of hockey and meet a lot of new people. So it was just cool to get a whole new experience with hockey involved.
If you're fairly new to the Eat More Carbs podcast, we do a high and low section where we share a little bit about what's going on with us personally and maybe the things that have gone really well and maybe the things that we wish had gone a little bit differently. Reilly, do you want to kick us off today?
Yeah, I can get us started. My high for this week, and kind of just my high in general for the last couple of months, is I am obsessed with painting my nails. It's so silly. I've always been the person that cannot paint her nails, and I love when my nails, like, I don't know, I just feel like when you like your nails are done, you just like feel more confident. It's fun. I always have this dilemma because I want to get my nails done, but if I get like gel or dip, it ruins my nails. It destroys them. But if I just get the paint done at the salon, it's like chipped on the way home. Like no matter how hard I try to like make sure it's okay, it chips. So this is not sponsored at all. I've told Jenna about this brand, but there's this brand called Olive and June. And it's basically this like tutorial. It's like step by step on like how to paint and like take care of your nails. And this is so silly. It's like changed the game for me because I can actually paint my nails and they like look okay. I just am putting that out there into the universe for anybody else who's as bad at painting their nails as I am, because they have literally changed my nail game.
You told me about that, and then I used that nail polish system before I went on vacation, and my nails held up the whole time. So I tested it. It's a real thing. It works.
It's also a clean brand too. Like they have less chemicals and things like that. So another added bonus, but I'm glad that you like it too.
Yeah, love it.
My low for the week is, if y'all are part of our newsletter or you've been following along with Jenna's Instagram, you know Jenna does these amazing recipes every single Monday. She does a little meal prep Monday. In the past week or so, Jenna did an amazing soup recipe on how to make a performance plate out of a soup. And I thought this was so fun, so cool, and I was so excited to try it because it's becoming fall here. It's nice and crisp outside. It's perfect soup weather. So I was so excited to try the soup, make it into a performance plate. The soup is like the autumn harvest soup from Trader Joe's. Jenna does such a good job. She like adds potatoes and veggies and protein to make a performance plate, and I was just so excited to try it. This weekend, I drove to my Trader Joe's. It's like 25 minutes away, which we're lucky that we have a Trader Joe's because some people don't. I was so excited. I go there, I get all my supplies for my soup. I'm so pumped. And then I go to buy the soup and the soup is not there. And I was so sad because I was so excited to make the performance plate soup. I do have all the ingredients. So if there is another soup that you recommend to replace it, let me know.
Yeah. It actually works really well with a lot of the different Rouse soup. I think that's how you say the name. Like you can buy it in most like general grocery stores, I feel like. So a lot of their jars of soup you can take with those too and swap it out. So I would just pick one of their tomato bases and go with that.
Okay, I'm so excited.
Sally, do you have a high and low that you can share?
Yeah, my high would also be food related. We played, like I said, we played that Italian team this weekend. So after the game, the coach ordered some pizza for us after the game. And of course, we're in Italy. So got some Italian pizza, which was awesome. Probably one of the best pizzas I've ever had, which I'm sure was just like a casual restaurant place for them, but it was amazing. And then haven't really had too many lows lately. I think today I was upset because I wanted to make some cookies and the recipe needs baking powder or pancakes, whatever I wanted to make needed baking powder. Sorry, it needed baking soda, and I accidentally bought baking powder because I read the labels wrong in German. So can't make them till I go out to the store again.
I can imagine that would be pretty tough though, trying to like navigate a grocery store in a completely different language than what you're used to.
Yeah, it was tough, especially since I don't have a data plan. Long story with my phone, but I discovered all the grocery stores have free Wi-Fi, so I downloaded like the Google Translate app. Now I can just take pictures of everything and it'll automatically translate it. So it's made it a little bit easier, but it's kind of in a rush today, so I just made a mistake.
I love living in the future though. Like, can you imagine just a couple of years ago without having that?
No, oh my gosh. Like, I feel like it's so much more convenient to travel, especially if you're not going to be somewhere long term. Like, it's not long enough to fully learn the language, but not short enough that you can just get away with it for a week. So it's a good mix, but definitely helps.
It's so cool too because the Google like Chrome now, you take a picture and it translates the picture, so you don't even have to type everything in, and it's so easy for like labels and menus. And yeah, I don't know what I would have done like 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that. The labels thing was giving me trouble at the beginning because it was like not only different ingredients, but everything is measured in 100 grams rather than the portion size of what they recommend to you. So then you have to measure it and then like figure out the math of what you need. So that was a little tricky at the start, but I think we figured out a good routine around that. So it's good.
I will wrap up our high and low section. My high and low kind of go together this week. My low is that my dog is sick. Poor guy. I know. And I always like, I'm
George.
like, he is my child. So anytime that he doesn't feel good, I get super worried. The high part of my week is that we have the absolute best vet here, and she takes such good care of him. So I feel so comfortable bringing my dog to her, knowing that she's going to love and care for him just as much as I would. And he's feeling so much better. She helped with his fever and, got him all checked for all the things, and he doesn't have anything serious or anything like that. But I'm just so thankful that we have good providers in our area that can make sure that our loved ones, animals and people, are taken care of.
Get well soon, George. I'm so sad.
He's much better now, but he definitely was feeling under the weather for a couple of days there.
Oh,
Do they know what he had?
glad to hear.
They think he just had some type of a regular cold, but I get really nervous because of valley fever. Like out in the Ohio, where we used to live, like everyone was concerned about like Lyme's disease from ticks, and that's not really a concern here, but valley fever is, especially for people and animals who haven't really been exposed before. So anytime that something starts to happen and I don't really see him getting better, like I think that would be cause for concern for me. So I just wanted to make sure he was okay. And she was like, it's okay. He's just a dog and he's gonna get sick sometimes. But
He's like your child, though.
yeah, exactly.
So, Sally, we're super excited to have you on. You are going to help answer some questions that are submitted by athletes and provide some insight on what it's like to work with a dietitian, share a little bit about your journey. So, we're going to pop into our first question.
Great.
So our first question says, can you tell us a little bit about your experience working with a dietitian as a professional athlete?
Yes. So as a professional athlete, my main reason for jumping into the nutrition side of things was, as I mentioned earlier, at the pro level, you want to invest in every area that you can. I didn't want to look back and think maybe if I had looked more into nutrition or spent more time on my strength and conditioning, like maybe I could have gone further, maybe I could have done better. And I sort of learned through my strength training that nutrition is just as important as all the other levels of performance. So I figured that I couldn't optimize my performance as a whole if I didn't start taking nutrition a little bit more seriously and understanding why I was doing certain things, because that's also something I learned in strength training is like, why are we doing this exercise? How is it going to help me? And then times when I'm without my strength coach, I have that knowledge to pull from. So that was really important with nutrition too, is like, there's so much information out there, like eat eggs, don't eat eggs. This is when you should eat eggs. Like, I just don't know when I should eat eggs anymore. So it's like officially learning what is correct for me as an athlete, which could be different from other people. And that sort of empowered me to take that side and sort of add that into my optimized performance.
I think what you just said about the why is so important. And I do have to brag about you because you were somebody who wants to know the why, right? It's not just like, hey, Sally, eat these fruit snacks before. You're like, why am I eating the fruit snacks? How many grams of carbs am I eating before my game? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? You were truly invested in the why. And that's so important because, like you've mentioned, it's so individualized. And so you were able to understand the why and then take that and individualize it to your plan.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing, it's so hard to not compare yourself to others when you're an athlete. Obviously, we shouldn't do it, but if I look at my teammates who I feel like are performing better than me, and I'm like, this is what they're eating, and it's not anything what, Reilly's taught me, and like, maybe they could optimize it more as well, but then I'd be like, oh, maybe I just need to eat this like salad, or I shouldn't eat this muffin or something like that. But then maybe they have different needs than me, or we just like have different energy systems. I might need more before, they might need more after. So that's also sort of helped me not compare myself as well, which has also been really helpful as an athlete. So that's sort of an added bonus I wasn't expecting.
I remember, especially I think in the first couple months of us working together, you were like, everybody's eating salad before the game. Like, everybody's eating salad. Like, what do I do? Do I tell them? Like, do I eat salad? Because, like you said, like, we compare ourselves to our teammates because you're competitive and you're, driven. That's how you've gotten to where you are. So we also compare our plates to our teammates as well.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like, now that I've learned so much about nutrition, like not just what's going to be good for me to play this game, but like life in general, I always want to help my teammates however I can, if it comes to games, like, oh, maybe we could run this play. But now that I know so much about nutrition, it's like, I might see what they're eating and not judging, but I'm like, oh, like maybe they could be just as much better if they had a little bit more carb, or like maybe we have too much protein, like in our pregame meal, like how can we balance a little bit more? But, it's one of those things where it's not really my place. Everyone sort of has to take that journey on their own. So just hope that maybe everyone can find somebody that is helpful for them.
One of the things that Reilly mentioned is that you care so much about the why with your nutrition. And I think kind of like you just said, understanding the why is not only important for you right now, but it's also important for you long term. Do you feel like working with Reilly has helped you with the why not only now, but understanding like why and what to change like in the future for you too?
Absolutely. And that was something I wasn't expecting I would learn working with like a dietitian. I figured it was more like I'm an athlete now, elite performance, and then like that's it, like how can we optimize that? I didn't know there was going to be this whole course program about like what is a carb, like what is a protein, like going to the basics. So now that I've learned that and how to make a plate, when to have certain nutrients, like I remember one time we were talking about it and I was saying I was going to go on a hike, or like my mom was going to go on a hike. And she was like, oh, well, when you're done playing, like that's your game day. Like you're going on a hike. Like you'd want to have a game day plate because that's like your big exercise for the day. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. You can use this stuff forever because it's food, right? We eat every day. So depending on what you're doing, it's like this information is always useful. So wasn't expecting that, but glad to know it now.
I think that's the important thing about nutrition is understanding that there's a lot of longevity with it too. And yes, right now it might look a little bit different because you are a professional athlete, but the basics are still there, and that knowledge is going to help carry you forward no matter where your career takes you.
Yeah, another important thing about the stuff that I learned was like I might coach one day and you always want to refer people to professionals, but in the case that somebody can't afford anything, like at least maybe I could help them with some basics, like maybe don't have this super fattening meal right before the game that's going to be heavy and things like that, but not like berate them and be like, don't eat McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, just be more healthy and mindful about it. And then be like, if you can, here's a professional. Or even like I found Reilly because I just started following pages on Instagram. Like there's so much information out there that you can access without money. And then when you have money, then you can go all in. So that's another good thing about it as well.
We just talked to another dietitian the other day who played college volleyball, and she was saying after she went through her training as a dietitian, she was like, I think my coach was onto something. Like she knew a little bit about nutrition to understand like what type of snacks she should have for players before the game. So if you do end up in that role, like you would be able to be like, hey, it's like this is something we should have maybe before we play. Think about fueling afterwards, think about hydration, like all those important things.
Yeah. And in like a healthy way too. Like, Reilly's always like, you can fit everything into a balanced week, right? Like big picture, starting to label foods like this is a bad food, like this isn't good for you, which might be true, but then it's like you start getting into the like good food, bad food, demonizing food thing, which was a problem for me. And going through this process has helped me like take that step back and be like, food is food, so sort of helping that too in the youth sports. I've seen that a lot. So helping there too as well would be good.
Look at you. Such a good role model. So proud. Good. You better tell them that. There's no good or bad foods. I like it. So I actually remember when we were first like messaging and things like that on Instagram, and one of the things that always stuck out what you said was you had some reservations about working with a dietitian, and one of them was you were like, I don't know if I really need nutrition support because I eat the same thing every single day and it's working. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember this.
How has your fueling maybe changed from that now?
Well, interestingly, one of the things that I did eat every day was this giant salad that was like my meal. And it wasn't like it was just lettuce, like it had a lot of good stuff into the salad, but it was like that was my big meal. It was like before hockey, like pre-hockey, like whatever it was. I had like that big old salad all the time. It had healthy food in it. So I was like, well, this is probably healthy. And it's one of those things where until you are doing it the right way, it feels fine. It's like, how would I know any different? I wasn't, as I was saying before in my head, I wasn't eating the bad food. So I thought it was okay. And then after learning about timing of when to eat certain foods, and now I've sort of felt the difference between being tired from lack of conditioning and tired from lack of fueling. Like I can actually tell the difference now. Who knows how it was even affecting me back when I was eating that? Like I couldn't even tell you. Like I probably was just fueled incorrectly the whole time I was in college. Who knows? But it does make such a huge difference now that I actually know what to do. So
I think that's a very valid, like the whole idea that we don't really know what we're missing when it comes to like that feeling of feeling fueled. Reilly, I know you experience this all the time, but I was working with somebody for the first time, ate something before a workout that was a little bit more carbohydrate forward. And afterwards they messaged me and they were like, I feel like a superhero. Like I feel like I just had a totally different experience in the gym than I typically have.
Yes, I think it's so, I don't know, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, I think. And sometimes we feel like we're doing great, but then we don't know, that feeling, or we don't know the opportunity to optimize something and feel even better.
like I said, at the time, I didn't know if I had the money to like justify the purchase because I wasn't sure if how long I was going to be playing or anything like that. So I sort of followed a couple pages of dietitians that all sort of followed each other. And then I was seeing patterns emerge between all of the postings. And I was like, well, if all four of them are saying the same thing, then it's probably sort of the right thing to do. I think the first big one that I was taking into consideration was the type of plates. Like I had never considered, everyone says carbo load before, a big race or something, but I would just think then that's like a whole plate of pasta, nothing else. But then I saw all these plates and I was like, okay, so it's different types of plates, like when to eat it. And that's when I was like, okay, if I want to do this, I need to make the purchase and go all in, because then you're just sort of missing that little bit of information that's individual to you that you can't just get from the Instagram page. But it was a good starting point, and then I learned more from there.
Do you have tips for other athletes when it comes to working with a dietitian?
One of the biggest tips that I would say is to find one that you trust and that you're comfortable with, because for me, and I know for a lot of probably other athletes that are heavily underfeeling or maybe overfeeling at different times, like you have to be really vulnerable and honest. And if you like aren't able to do that with this person, then they can't help you. Like I know for me, there was a few times that I would share pictures of my plates, and I knew like for me, my portions of fat on the plate were usually too much for like pre-practice, because I'd always have like a bagel, cream cheese, and then like 3 full eggs. And so we had to tone that down a little bit, but I really love my bagel and cream cheese. So sometimes I would just have it and put it on the plate and posted the picture knowing that it wasn't like the right plate and that she'd see it and things like that. But if I had been like, oh, I forgot to take the picture, like, sorry, like I'll get it next time, like then she couldn't have helped me or like given me advice or been like, it's okay, it happens, like reassuring me and moving on from there. So I think building that trust and just working on being vulnerable so that they can help you be your best.
Also, we were never going to mess with the bagel and cream cheese because you love it.
Yes, we adjusted the eggs.
Yes.
Well, that's one of the great things about having a provider that you can be vulnerable with, because Reilly knew that that's something that you loved, and she wasn't going to be like, hey, Sally, never have a bagel and cream cheese again. And like if she had recommended that, I probably would have told you like, run, like that's not good. Like we want to incorporate those fun foods, those foods that you love.
I think a big reservation for a lot of people would be somebody telling them they can't eat things that they like, and then bringing that fear of food into their life, because maybe they're already feeling bad about what they're eating and then they don't want someone to bring it up and things like that. But I've learned that I can actually incorporate all these foods that I like more than when I wasn't working with a dietitian. Like it actually helped me. Like if I go out to eat, like I'm not panicking anymore. Like if I know I'm going somewhere where I can't get all the nutrients I need, like I'll bring an apple, like I'll bring something so that I can enjoy what I want, but still get all the nutrients that I need for the day. And it just, I don't stress about it as much anymore. Like I'm confident anywhere I go. So the trust really helps with the reservations as well, like you were talking about earlier.
One of the great things I think that you said there is, instead of being stressed about like fueling when you're in a different situation or when you're out, or like something that we've talked about is like when you're doing street food and things like that because you're in Europe right now, you thought to have a positive approach with your nutrition. So what you did is you added the apple instead of being like, oh my gosh, I can't eat these things because I'm not going to get all the right nutrients in or things like that, but you added something into your fueling plan to make the performance plate into fuel properly.
Yeah, I actually have a really good story based on something we just talked about. We'd been talking about PB&Js, since that's like a very easy thing to make. and how if I needed to, I could just have two PB&Js and a banana pregame if I had to. So this weekend for one of our games, usually we take a bus and they have a microwave. So I was going to bring some rice and some protein and cook the rice in the microwave. But just in case, I packed two PB&Js and my banana, just in case something happened. And it turned out that we didn't even take the big bus. We took two minivans. So we didn't have a microwave. And I didn't have to stress about it at all because I brought my two PB&Js and banana. So I had my pregame meal ready to go. And I can guarantee you that if I hadn't done that, I would have been freaking out the whole time and probably would have played worse, even if I didn't have to, just because I didn't have my pregame meal. I loved having a backup option ready to go.
We love a plan B. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
And you scored a goal, didn't you?
I scored in our first game, but not this last weekend. But yes, I did score in my first one. Yeah. And in the first one, we decided to not eat every period, like in between intermissions. And I felt great there too. So I learned something new like every week. It's great.
I think too, a lot of the misconception sometimes with like working with a sports dietitian or being a professional athlete is it has to be super fancy and it has to be elaborate, extensive, but like the basics work, like PB&Js work. And you can contest to that.
Yes, I felt very surviving in season mode for your mantra, the sort of thrive in the off season, survive in season. You can probably say it better than me, but
you said it perfectly.
There we go.
I really do think though, you have kind of taken that approach over the last year of us kind of working together, where you put in a lot of work in the off season and now it's paid off in season. I think you are one of the athletes that I've worked with, you know, this last year that has put some of the most effort into your off season training and your off season fueling.
Yeah, like my strength and conditioning coach said the same thing. Well, he's not my coach, but I use like an online trainer, and he says the same thing all the time. Like off season is where you grow. And then you play in season, right? You don't really build that much in season. So I did both as much as I could because now it's just time to play and perform. So I've really believed in that off season, and I had about 6 months to get as good and optimized as I could. And yeah, I mean, I've never had this much ice time in my life. So I definitely wouldn't be able to do as much training or, you know, fit as many nutrients in the weekend as I was before. So like sometimes you just have to make it work to get through the weekend. And I'm much less stressed about it because we did so much planning and going over the schedule in the off season. So that was a huge help.
So we have a couple questions that we ask everybody, all of our guests for the podcast. The first one is going to be, you know, it's called the Eat More Carbs podcast. So what is your favorite carbohydrate?
Well, I know this one isn't original because I've heard it on a podcast before, but definitely bread. Big bread girl. Definitely one of the foods that I would have thought were not like off limits, but that's kind of a stereotypical one that you hear gets cut out of people's diets. So I was super happy to hear that I could eat all types of bread.
We love bread. Do you have a specific type of bread that you like or just any type?
I love breads that they serve before dinner. Like if I'm going to a restaurant and they don't have a basket of bread, I'm usually sad at the start of that dinner. That restaurant takes a letter grade off for me.
Such a good answer. I knew I liked you. So good. I feel like that describes like that hits in my soul.
Yeah. Like if there's like, you know, 5 pieces of bread and there's 2 of us, like you might be telling me a story, but all I'm thinking about is, am I getting that last piece of bread or are you getting it? Because I'm waiting.
What is your favorite pre-workout fuel?
You mentioned it earlier, actually. I'm a big Welsh fruit snacks fan. I really like a little couple packets of those before any trainings that I do.
Those are my favorite too.
So good.
So good. Can you get them overseas? Can you get them over there?
I can't get them over here. And I looked into importing them just to see, and it costs like 70 euros. So unfortunately, we have to take those off the table.
You'll have to stock up when you come back for Christmas in the States.
Yes, I will definitely be ordering a bunch of those to my house to bring back with me.
What's your favorite post-workout fuel?
I couldn't decide between 2. I was going to go with Goldfish first. I like the salty afterwards, but then I remembered that I love a good chocolate milk. We brought chocolate milk back in recently this last week, and every one that I've had after practice has just tasted so good. So I'd have to go with those 2.
Actually, I have a funny story about the goldfish. I remember when we were messaging about the goldfish, and you're like, this is how many goldfish I have to meet to get my post-workout carbs. Like, it's so funny.
Well, I know. Well, like I could eat that many. Like I could eat a whole box of goldfish if I really wanted to, but it seemed like one of those foods where it was like you shouldn't eat that much. Like it just seemed like one of those not great foods that you wouldn't need to eat a lot of. So I was actually really happy that I got to eat a bunch of them.
I think that's another thing dietitians can help do is help understand that there are foods that maybe we've labeled as off limits or something like that, and kind of breaking down those misconceptions or preconceived ideas maybe about certain foods that can really help with performance and like incorporating goldfish. And if you love goldfish, like heck yeah, we want to do that.
Yes, love goldfish.
And then our last question, Sally, is what's your favorite pair of like kicks or shoes?
So this one I felt bad for because I'm not a huge shoe person because I have really bad feet. So if I can't wear my insoles on a pair of shoes, then they really hurt. But I do have these pair of Nike slide-ons that I got like 10 years ago or something. And they're just slide-ons, so I don't have to wear my insoles with them, and they don't hurt my feet. So they're great. And I haven't gotten new ones because I don't know if any others will be as comfortable as those. So as long as I can wear those ones, they'll stay on my feet.
Just one of those tried and trues.
Yep. We go for comfort here.
Practicality. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to the Eat More Carbs podcast. Like we kind of chatted today, one of the important things that you can do is finding a health provider that you trust, because there is a certain amount of vulnerability that comes into changing your fueling patterns. If you have questions for Reilly and I, you can always DM us on Instagram, or you can leave them in the comments below this podcast. We're at the Eat More Carbs podcast. You can also find us each individually. I'm Jenna Fisher Nutrition, and Reilly is Reilly Beatty Nutrition. For those of you who maybe want to reach out to an athlete to ask a few more questions, Sally, how can people contact you?
They can reach out to me on my Instagram. It is SallyH_360. I know it can be scary starting this journey, so if you have any questions about what it's like, feel free to reach out. I'll get back to you right away.
Sally, thank you so much for being on the Eat More Carbs podcast today and answering a couple of questions about what it's like to work with a dietitian. As always, make sure to eat more carbs.